Welcome back to GLF. I'm Natasha Elkington, and I'm here with Ina Ruthenberg from the World Bank, and you're the World Bank Country Manager in Zambia.
That's correct.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Natasha.
Nice to meet you too, and thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we start with you telling me what's the World Bank's interest in landscape restoration?
No, thank you actually for inviting us to this forum. Actually, we are founding partners, I understand. And we really want to continue working with the community on these issues. It's just a huge challenge if you look at the figures, and they have been quoted a lot during this forum. I mean, the cost of land degradation is like in the 3% of GDP of Africa, just for the continent of Africa. And then if you look at Latin America and Asia, you know, these are staggering numbers. And it's just that these costs are not reflected in the development policy planning of many countries. So we want to contribute to this discussion, and we are actively involved. The World Bank has a huge portfolio and dramatically growing. I've looked at the figures just recently. I mean, it's now 3.3 billion active investment portfolio. And I mean, we're a development bank. We fund investments in this area, and and I think the pipeline is another 2.9 billion. So, and this is only actually the public side of the World Bank. We also have IFC, the private sector arm, which is also a staggering figure. I don't know exactly, I recall the number, but the point here is that we as an institution, as a World Bank group institution, not only the public side, but the private side, come together with our instruments to support this agenda. So that's why we are here, and we want to share our experiences and contribute to the discussion.
Lovely. Well, thank you for that. And then there's a lot of political will and momentum in restoring landscapes, but there's also a big gaps in financing. Could you tell us more about how we can bridge those gaps?
Yes, I try to reflect a bit, and I will sort of talk also from what I observe myself. I think there's obviously a big role for the public sector to play in this. But when it comes to money and when it comes to real change, I think you need to think in terms of markets. And here I feel the most transformational way to think about it is, for example, with the carbon credits. Okay. We have an example in Zambia, and I think it's one of the very first ones. I was very impressed. We were able, under a pilot project in the eastern province of Zambia, to make payments of $800,000, so close to $1 million, to 18,000 small farmers and Komako, which is a social enterprise owned by smallholder farmers, and make a payment to them. So I kept telling government, it's not money that you get, it's money that goes straight to the communities. Right. And it's value. So you have to attach value for conservation, value to the tree, value to the wildlife, and then you pay for it. And it has proven that it works, and now we want to scale it up big time under a new project, the Forest Landscape Project. We want to try to reach out to 250,000 smallholder farmers. So I think this is the kind of things that can be really transformational, to create markets, to help what we call also de-risk markets. And this is just on the carbon credit payment side. But I think there's another dimension of markets. And as I was walking here through the corridors and listening to all these discussions, I mean, it's actually back in the 90s I worked a little bit on these issues, and at that time we had there was work going on, particularly in Central America, on payments for ecological services. Okay. This discussion doesn't seem to continue. And I find it again, you know, you have a watershed park. I was in Malawi, Nika Plateau. It's a transboundary park between Zambia and Malawi. It feeds the water levels like in Zambia, the South Luangwa Park, and then on the Malawi side it feeds, I think, a big chunk of Lake Malawi. The park is short of resources for management, but it provides water. So why is there not a payment service, resource flowing back, and then just a fraction actually probably of what it would cost otherwise, And so in thinking of these markets, I find that's really important, because that generates resources, that generates private sector interests in these issues. So rather than sort of thinking about private sector just sort of coming in with an investment such, you need to create markets, the space. And that's where obviously policymakers are important.
Okay, great. I think that was fantastic. Thank you very much for joining
Okay,
us.
thank
I
you.
really appreciate you taking time.